We beat the game on a Thursday. Alrighty, Shining Force has been conquered. Woot woot. You can now let all the spoilers flow in for this game. I'm sure many people have been dying to say so many things. I missed 2 characters. Just 2? That sounds pretty good. Talk later about my questions. I guess I missed that character. I don't know who that is. Unless that's the upgrade of whatchamacallit. Oh, and I don't recognize that character either. Oh, these could be upgrades though. Oh, that was Guns? Okay. Guns looks crazy. So yeah. Shining Force has been conquered. I did not write down my thoughts for this game, and that's primarily because I can sum up this game with 2 words. It's old. And I don't mean that in a negative in light. I am just merely stating the obvious. It's a very old game. It does things in old ways. It interacts with certain elements in old ways. It's very much a product of its time. And I don't necessarily hold that against the game. I will say that we have come so far in gaming since 1992 that I certainly prefer I certainly prefer the newer iterations, I suppose. Or like the newer types of mechanics and whatnot, but I definitely didn't have anything wrong with this game. In fact, I was actually expecting to not like this game at all, because of how old it is and how just how old it is. You know, like most old games out there just don't have the design principles and the various quality features that I'm used to in today's gaming. But I think this game gets away with it to an extent. The menuing in this game definitely sucks. I get it. I understand. It's an old game. I'm not holding it against the game, but it totally sucks. Moving items back and forth, purchasing items, equipping items. It's all just a product of its time, and it's rough times for sure. I thought the story was okay. Again, a product of its time. You know, like what more can you say about the story and what it's doing? Like it's doing what other games would do in that time. Like you're getting like an abridged, shortened version of what stories we have like nowadays. You know, sometimes they're padded out too long, sometimes they're just unbelievably short. And you know, like again, basically everything that I have to say about this game is just it's old, and not in a negative or a positive way. It's just an old game. Um, I do think that the battles were probably the highlight for me, which is good because as a tactics game, if your battles aren't fun or enjoyable or engaging in the slightest, then you know that's a problem. Um, Um, I will also say that I was very caught off guard with like the general navigation and how you like. There's not a lot of tactics games out there where you get to move around and go talk to like town villagers and like see some recruitable characters and whatnot, and um, it was it was kind of a different experience for me because I'm not used to seeing that in tactics games. So I was definitely caught off guard by that. Uh, the I think what pushed it a little bit back for me was the way that you have to interact with NPCs by talking to them and then going through like four separate menu things. But you know, one more time, it's an old game, product of its time. So um, I I get it. I understand. Um, Let me see. We're gonna have to pause that for a second because I don't remember everything of everything. Story, was it satisfying? I would say it's satisfying. We sacrifice ourselves, but we're alive. That's great. Did it feel complete? I will say it felt complete. How was the pacing? Pacing was certainly, I guess, like fast paced. It had more missions than I thought it would. So it was a much longer game than I was expecting. So that was kind of nice. For gameplay mechanics and design, I spoke about that a little bit. Um, for Cardinal Sins, we have a silent protagonist, as well as game over if a party member or guest character dies. In this instance, Axelrod. I get why Axelrod dying means a game over, but uh, it it really sucks because there's just been there's so many instances of me feeling like Axelrod is in a or main character is being placed in a safe spot and everything is fine and dandy. And then all of a sudden, the enemy just gets two attacks off and he dies. And the mission's over. Um and on one hand, it is very nice that we get to keep our levels and whatnot, and like all we have to do is resurrect our people. So, like on that hand, that's nice. On the flip side, it's I wish I was just able to continue the battle, and then Axelrod resurrects himself after the battle's over. But I I understand why they have it in there. Because if your main character dies, then he's dead. Who's gonna resurrect him? The other people gonna drag his corpse, just like he's dragging everyone else's corpse. I don't know. For miscellaneous sound and music, yeah, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the music in this game actually surprises me a little bit. Um, an older game like this, I wasn't necessarily expecting anything to really catch my ear. And some tracks in here, I'm gonna have to give them a listen outside of the game because, I think a remix or two is possible. For graphics, I thought the graphics were fine. It looks fine to me. Is the game worth recommending? This one's an interesting one. I think recommending old games. Uh, I feel like you have to have some sort of affinity towards old games if you've spent a large portion of your life and you continue to spend a large portion of your life on newer games that have newer systems and quality of life features and things like that. Um, because it's one thing to start with, like Shining Force 1 and then work your way up uh the release thing. But if I've spent the last 10 years playing games that I've released within the last 20 years, all of those games are going to be drastically different than Shining Force 1. That being said, I don't think this game does anything so egregious or so poor or anything like that that this game can't be recommended. It's like 1000% a pretty solid title, which again is crazy because the game is so old. I can see there are a lot of elements in this game where I can see why people like it. I I I don't see why people like it maybe over some other games, but that everybody's taste in games are different, so it is what it is. Um, what else do I need to go through? Yeah, that's more or less it. If the developer is watching, I for a game that released in 1992, I think this game is uh, as disrespectful as this is going to sound, it is far better than it has any right to be. Um, and maybe that's just my ignorance of games that I've released in this type of era. But when I think back to some non-tactics games that I've released in the 90s, and there's uh there's nothing but frustration comes to mind. So the fact that this game does not invoke any of those feelings at all is certainly impressive to me, and it's even more impressive that it it's actually fun, and it's you know it it it's it it is arguably better than some games that I've played already in the tactics genre, which again is just so crazy because the game is so old. But yeah, to reiterate my overall thoughts, in case I uh, didn't necessarily go over them in light detail before, I actually enjoyed playing this. As shocking as it is an old game, and so basically everything that I have to say just gets summed up to the game is old. Um, it it approaches things in uh, a way that we now consider as outdated, and there's nothing wrong with that because this game helped spawn other games, and other games are benefited from Shining Force existing. So yeah. I didn't mention this at the start, but I also have to throw it out there. This was a viewer requested game by Nakuri. So thank you very much, Nakuri, for the recommendation. You have surprised me with this one in more ways than one. Let me see. I think that's all that I have, so I can end my thoughts here. And if chat has anything they want to talk about, we can chuck that at the end. Otherwise, I can just talk to chat for a little bit. Yeah.